In 2023, McFarlane Toys released a Spawn vs. Batman 2-pack. While the figures were okay, the Batman wasn't exactly accurate to the source material. Now, McFarlane's released a more comics-accurate version as a Platinum Edition. Today, we're going to see if this Chase figure is worth hunting down, and more importantly, how would it look with some head swaps. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Starting off with the packaging, and not much to see here, except of course for that Platinum Edition sticker. We've got our name and logo down here. This Batman comes from the 1996 Batman Spawn crossover, and features the same artwork as the 2-pack. In fact, you can even see a little sliver of Spawn down here. The difference is that this time the figure actually looks like the artwork. For those searching in-store, here's the UPC. For packaging, I'm giving Batman 4 points. Moving on to presentation, and at the top of his scalp, Batman stands at 7¼ inches, or thereabouts 18½ centimeters, and is mostly just a repaint of the 2-pack version, which itself is mostly just year 2, but with Hush Batman's boots. The only sculpted difference with this version is the head, and it is a major improvement. I'm not saying the 2-pack version doesn't have its charms. In fact, it's a very good recreation of Batman Troika, but it also feels like a cranky old man. Back in my day, we didn't have all these fancy action figures. We had to make our own toys out of asbestos and radium, and we turned out fine. Did you, though? Not only is this new head a dramatic improvement, it also looks a lot more like the artwork upon which it's based. That includes these extra wide ears. To be honest, I actually kinda dig it. After all, they are supposed to be bat ears. That said, I'm not crazy about his actual ears bulging out of the sides of his mask, though to be fair, I never like when artists do that. Still, I concede that that's more of a me thing. Overall, I like the head, and I don't even mind the black around the mask. In fact, in normal light, you can barely see it. I also really like these colors. The blue is deep and rich, and the gray balances it really well. Almost like a Three Jokers equivalent of the Comic-Con Nightfall, right down to the shading around the mask. That said, McFarlane opted for a darker, more marigold yellow, which creates a pretty cool sense of continuity with some of their other releases. All lined up, and it does kind of feel like we're looking at the evolution of his costume. If there was one thing I had mixed feelings about, though, it would be the cape. It is sculpted well and has a nice sense of texture, and they actually went in and painted the inside black, which was a nice touch, but it would have been nice if they could have gone in and given him a cloth goods wired cape similar to the Norm Brayfogle one. With this being a Platinum Edition of another figure, I get why they did it this way. In fact, for presentation, I'm giving this Batman 5 points. Moving on to posability, and this being the Three Jokers body, we've seen it a few times now. From the top, and remember that instead of normal head articulation, he has a ball joint at the base of the neck. Meh, back in my day, we didn't have all these fancy points of articulation. We had polio. Because of how the cape bunches up, he can't really look up. Down, however, is no trouble. He also gets a pretty good amount of tilt, and side to side. Even though he has this bulky cape, he can still raise his arms about 90 degrees, which is pretty impressive. He does get hindered, though, when trying to shift forward and back. There is a rotator cuff in there, but again, in a case like this, it doesn't really matter. No problem, though, with the bicep swivel, nor the double jointed elbows. And of course, Batsy has wrist balls that can swivel and hinge in any direction. Moving to the middle, and Batman has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist, but while this body usually has a good arch back, in this case the cape kind of springs him forward, and of course there's really no hunch to speak of. No problem with tilt, of course, nor side to side. Below the utility belt, and Batman has the standard McFarlane hips. He can kick this high, which is pretty good, and he can actually kick back a fair amount. But the cape. Very nice amount of twist in the hip with this body. And then moving down, we got double jointed knee, ankle balls that can swivel, hinge, and pivot, and toticulation. That's the problem with you kids today. You're all walking around on your tiptoes instead of telling it how it is. Take, for instance, all this nonsense about women being allowed to get credit cards without their husband's permission. Okay, Bat Grandpa, let's get you to Batbed. As much as I like the look of the cape, it does get in the way of articulation. So, for posability, I'm giving this Batman 3 points. Moving on to playability, and in terms of accessories, this one's pretty standard for this body type. Of course, he's got his trading card and figure stand, and to McFarlane's credit, it does actually talk about the crossover instead of just being a generic synopsis of Batman himself. Beyond that, though, he has a standard, gigantic, blunt force trauma batarang. You lazy kids and your boomerangs coming back to you. In my day, if we threw something, we had to get up off our took us and go pick it up ourselves. In addition to the grabbing hands he comes preloaded with, Batman also has the standard alternate hands that come with 3 Jokers. That includes a fist and an accessory holding hand for the Batarang. Obviously, that's very much appreciated. What I appreciate less, however, is that they keep reusing these ribbed hands, which don't match the other ones that he comes with. But playability is more than just accessories, it's also about how well your figure plays with others. Starting off with the other half of the world's finest, and here we have Hush and Action Comics 1000 versions of Superman. Now that I've raised the Hush version's neck, it actually scales a lot better. For the other McFarlane Superman body types, however, and here's DC Classic and Mullet, along with Christopher Reeve and Crisis with the Action Comics #1 head. Rounding out the Trinity is Wonder Woman. Just for fun, I thought I'd bring out the DC Direct Dotson for a change. On that note, and here's DC Essentials Flash along with Flashpoint, and then for Aquaman, here's JLA and Endless Winter with the alternate Barry Allen head. And then capping off the team is Green Lantern's Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner. Moving over to the Bat family, and here we have Dick Grayson and Tim Drake versions of Robin. With this Batman being so tall, Tim doesn't look half bad here. And just because it's handy from my Power Girl review, here we have the Robin of Earth 2. And on the subject of an adult Dick Grayson, here's Better Than Batman and Nightfall versions of Nightwing. Lastly, for this era of Batman, and here's Batgirl and Huntress. For some classic rogues, however, and here's Silver Age and Clown versions of the Joker, along with Rebirth and Mortal Kombat 11, Standard and Platinum versions of Nightfall Catwoman, Classic Penguin, Classic Riddler, and because it feels appropriate to this Batman, blue and red versions of Azrael. For a relative scale comparison, here's Batman with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. Yeah, aren't you forgetting someone? Who? Oh, I don't know. Remind me again who you were in the crossover with. Whoops! Here's Batman with Mortal Kombat 11 and 2-pack versions of Spawn. That said, I know what you've been waiting for are the head swaps. Just another quick reminder that this is a very specific style of articulation, so figures with this kind of head are not compatible. Starting off with Batgramps, and I'm not sure if I think it's an improvement, but if you like this head, it wouldn't be hard to paint it to match this blue. Other way around, and I like this head with the darker color scheme. Again, wouldn't be hard to paint this head black. That said, when it comes to this body, there are other heads like Detective Comics 27 that I just prefer more. Otherwise, and here we have 3 Jokers. One of my biggest issues with the 3 Jokers head is it has no neck. This combo makes that very apparent. That said, I do like this. Here the neck is a little too long, but it's giving off Batman the Animated Series vibes. Next is Batman Year 2. If you wanted a long-eared option with a less extreme face, this is a great way to go. Once again, it does sit a little bit low and would need repainting, but I do think it would look solid. The issue though is just how expensive this figure is on the aftermarket. And that's the same issue you're going to run into if you wanted to do this combination. Keep in mind, I don't personally use that plastic cowl piece because I just think this looks better, but in this instance the neck is a bit long. I also don't use the plastic cowl piece on Hugo Strange. In fact, this isn't even his cape. It's the one that came with Adam West. The colors are different, but the blue is close enough that you could make this swap work. Also, I know it looks rough now, but I do plan on gluing the cape down properly. Other way around, and this is actually pretty cool if you wanted a more classic Hugo. His figure is modeled closer off of his Legends of the Dark Knight appearance, whereas in mainline continuity he just wore a regular Batman costume. With that in mind, I like it. But for something a bit more modern, here's Dark Knight's Metal. If you wanted a little bit less of a stylized face, this is a good option. In fact, with a bit of work, this could be a really good larger scale Rebirth. Just be warned that the cavity for the neck kind of pushes the face forward and down a bit. Conversely, this one was a bit of a tight squeeze, but looks pretty good. Obviously, you'd have to do some repainting. I'll also warn that after doing all these head swaps, the cape is pulling away from the body, which doesn't look all that great. Here we have Hush with their dueling shelf-hogging capes. If 3 Jokers was Batman the Animated Series, this is the new Batman Adventures. Keep in mind though that once again the neck's a bit long, other way around, and once again this neck's a bit too short, but it is better than some of the ones we've looked at, and overall Hush is just a really good head. Finishing us out is the first appearance Batman from Detective Comics 27. As long-eared options go, I still prefer Year 2, but Detective Comics 27 is more readily available. If you wanted to take advantage of the cloth cape on Detective 27, I could totally see using this head, but unfortunately it sits a bit too high and would have to be shaved down. Which combination was your favorite? Sound off in the comments below. In terms of scaling, it depends on which figures you display them with, but there are options. But in terms of options, I do think they could have done done better with accessories.
You don't need accessories. The only thing you need is a good firm handshake.
For playability, I'm giving this Batman an okay 3 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. If you can find this Batman at retail, he'll set you back $22.99.
$23? Do you know how many cans of chipped beef I could get for that?
I found this one at Walmart, so I'm pretty happy. Even the aftermarket prices aren't that bad, with most going for between $30 to $45.
That's how much my first house cost.
If you like what you see and find them on shelves, I'd definitely pick them up. Otherwise, with so many McFarlane Batman options out there, I really wouldn't sweat it. For price, I'm giving the Platinum Edition Spawn Batman 4 points, averaging out to a grand total of 3.8 out of 5.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it 5 stars.
For more Batman head swap videos, check out one of these, and until next time, play nice and have fun.